Well, good afternoon, everybody. Go ahead and recap some thoughts after watching the tape of the Nebraska game. Positive things. I thought we competed really hard for 3 quarters. And, my thought, too, going into it was to get into the fourth quarter where it was a bout that could go either way, and then let the chips fall where they may. And, I thought Nebraska really played well in the fourth quarter, and obviously, we had a meltdown in all 3 phases of the game, and so we've got to correct that. But I thought we were competitive. Our defensive front linebackers were very solid versus traditional runs, inside zones and things like that, tailback runs. And then also I think we corrected some of our mistakes that we had made against Northern Illinois with the jet sweeps. So I thought that was some positive things there. I thought, for the first 3 quarters that we threw the ball pretty effectively against their secondary. We created a lot of third down and makeables. When I say makeables, they're not third down and longs. So that was positive. And I think by my recollection, we gave up 1 sack. And so that was positive. A whole lot to improve on. I mean, the very first thing is you look at turnovers. You turn the ball over 6 times. We come up with 1 takeaway. That ratio is not going to work against anybody, particularly against a good team when you're on the road. So really disappointing there. The 2 out of 10 conversions on third down. And what's so disappointing about that was, particularly in the first half, where there were 3rd down and 2, 3rd down and 1. We had a 4th down that was short. We didn't convert on those. And then it kind of dogpiled on top of that. We missed some field goals. And so those were opportunities that were missed, and we've got to correct. I thought we had far too many big plays by the Nebraska wide receivers. And we knew they were going to be very talented, but it was going to be a key to the game, and so we weren't able to be effective there. And as I said, we've got to be able to create a more favorable turnover margin. And so we'll work hard on that during the course of the week. We are healthy. We came out of the game with no reported injuries. There's some guys that have some bumps and bruises, but overall, we're fairly healthy. So that one's in the book. An opportunity that was on the table that we didn't seize. And, some of it I think you can chalk up to some youth, that it's going to be a learning experience. I know it certainly is going to be a learning experience for Josh and some of our other players, some of the secondary players that we had out there, going up and competing for the football instead of just running and allowing the opponent receiver to catch the football. And I think it was another good experience for our place kicker as well. It was a big stage, and we're going to learn from those things. UC Davis, a team that I think is a really good football team. For me personally, in the old years of the SCS football, I know quite a bit about their institution, their football program. They're 1-1. We watched both games extensively. Some of the notes that I took from is they really got excellent quarterback play. Ben Scott's completed 65% of his passes. He's got a quick release. They've got tall receivers. They all seem to be about 6'3", 200 pounds. Their recruiting area is very fertile. They sit in between Sacramento and the Bay Area, and they, with the UC system, they can recruit up and down. So they've always had good athletes, and so the quarterback is an exceptional player. Got a really good running back, Luga. He's averaging 120 yards, and I think it was noted, he rushed for 105 against the Oregon defense. And so he's a strong physical guy that also has a big play ability. I think he took off for a 90-yard run against Southern Oregon. So we've got our hands full there. Big, good-sized offensive line. Defense that bounces between a 4-man front and a 3-down front. Solid tackling linebackers. Zach Jones is their leading tackler. They got good speed in the secondary, and so you've got a good solid kicking game as well. So very capable opponent. We've watched tons of tape from last year and this year, and there's marked improvement with this football program. I know their coaches. I think he's in his 4th year. He was a longtime assistant at the University of California at Berkeley, coached the running backs there, done a good job recruiting. So be a big challenge for us come Saturday afternoon. So at this time, I'll open it up to any questions anybody has.
Greg, speaking of tape, I didn't notice this during the game, but when I got home, I watched the tape and I saw that during the first quarter, some extracurriculars going on, a penalty was called, and then the camera zoomed over you. You were pretty hot with the official at that time and pretty animated. Can you tell us what you were saying to him?
Well, I'm not going to tell you exactly what I was saying. For me, I think you play the game in between the whistles, and I thought there was too much extracurricular activity going on, and I thought the officials did a good job during the course of the game. They flagged a lot of players. It wasn't strictly Nebraska players. I think Lucas Walker got a flag also, and so maybe that was during the time when Josh got hit. It was maybe, I thought, a late hit or something, or there was another play early in the game that I think one of their defensive backs and one of our defensive backs and wide receivers got into a tussle, and that's just stuff for me kind of grates against me, and if there's anything that always gets me a little wound up. So I don't know if there was any lip readers on the camera, but anyhow, the officials were great though. They listened, and I thought they managed the game well.
You mentioned after the game, you'll talk with Josh as a competitor, you expect him to bounce back with the young guys. You said kind of a learning experience to you and Brent. Have you said anything in particular? Do you approach him differently this week? I mean, how do you kind of get him to come back from a game like, or a fourth quarter like that?
Well, yeah, because I think there was some things early in the game. I thought he did really well. The touchdown pass right before half was a pretty remarkable play. I mean, he's running to his right and he throws a strike 50 yards. Not very many guys can do that, and I thought some of the other throws he made, which were good. Josh has got a really good amount of confidence. He's not cocky, but there is a good amount of confidence. I think what came into play many times, during practice, we'll talk, hey, you throw the ball down the heart of the field, sometimes not good things are going to happen. And he found out. And some bad things happen, and so we certainly don't. He doesn't need to be beat over the head. Believe me, there's no one that wanted to play and win more than what he did. And this goes back to, I know the score got lopsided. Okay, I'm very aware of that. We had a choice. We made a choice. Okay, are we going to go over to Lincoln and play it close, and like I said, get our box of chicken and go home? Or are we going to go over there and try to win the game? Now, when we got the pick six against us, our offense came right back, and then they scored. Well, when we start getting 2 scores down, you've got a choice right then. Okay, are you going to run A-gap power, or are you going to try to push the ball down the field? And we pushed it. I mean, it's kind of like if you're ever a golfer and you say press. Well, that's what we did, and it didn't work out. But a great learning experience for Josh. Some things that he made some really poor decisions, and I think, composure came into play. And so those are going to be things that we'll work with this week. But we're confident that he's our starting quarterback, and he'll bounce back this week against a good UC Davis football team. But really legitimate question, though, Robert. I mean, and there's times that he was playing really well, but, and I think, too, quite frankly, we need to be able to run the football more, too. And what did happen in the first part of the game, we had 3rd down and 2, 3rd down and 3, and we didn't convert. And probably, in hindsight, should have pressed it a little bit more to stick with our guns, and we went away from some of the things that we do best. And I think we were asking him to have a Peyton Manning-like performance as a sophomore in Memorial Stadium, and that's a lot on his plate.
Coach, after the game, Andrew Winger mentioned that this is kind of a game that you need to win, and it's important to win those games. How do you balance, that message with not underestimating?
Well, I can tell you, there's been a lot of years in FCS football. the lines between FCS and FBS are pretty doggone gray. There's a lot of players playing in the FCS that should be playing in FBS, and there's a lot of players in FBS should be playing. I mean, that's just where it's at. And last year we opened up with the University of North Dakota, and it was not even a close game, and we took the woodshed. And so, the sense of, okay, overconfidence, that's not going to come into play. The way we look at it is we're looking for continual improvement in our football program, and every week is an opportunity for continual improvement. This is a very good opponent we're playing. It's an excellent school, and so for us, we need to take the next step and improve. Now, certainly coming back from a loss, and not only a close loss, it was a blowout loss. There's going to be some patchworking that we have to do with our coaches to make sure some of the guys feel like, okay, hey, we've got a good football team, but we can't just say, well, shoot, they're Nebraska and they're picked to win their side of the Big Ten. We were expected. I don't know how many underdog points we were. Well, that's just going to happen. We're going to correct our mistakes and move forward. And so, I appreciate Andrew's comments that this is a game we have to win. The way we look at it, though, is every game is that way.
Coach, based on the North Dakota game last year, you have a young team, but you said you like the maturity. Will you bring that up to them, or do you think you'll even need to bring that up to them this week?
Oh, you know what? I'm going to bring up the point of let's control the things that we can control, Robert. Let's get better. Let's focus on the Cowboys. And you're going to watch the tape, and you watch Oregon. It wasn't like it was just. I mean, they're moving the football. It was a competitive football game, and so I think our players are going to recognize that it's going to be a competitive game, and we need to make improvement this week.
Craig, as you watch the film, you talked about Josh as your quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
There's no question about that. When you talk about the big gainers from a passing standpoint, a lot of yards after the catch, as you guys look at the tape from last week, are you contemplating or thinking about even a little bit some lineup changes in the defensive secondary?
We're pretty thin there, and so, some things I think we can correct. We're always looking and examining some of our players. We're playing right now with 3 corners, and we'll see which guy's hot. The safety position, we did get beat over the top once, and so we're evaluating that, but I'm not looking at you in the eye right now and saying, hey, it's going to be wholesale changes. We knew those guys were going to be good. I think maybe there's some other group of receivers in that we're going to play as a talent group is going to be as good, but it was disappointing, and we're hoping that we're going to bounce back this week.
Coach,
Fair question, though. Fair question. Yes, you're up.
how did Cooper handle, having a couple misses, and how important was it for him to kind of finally get one to go through?
Well, all that, yeah. That's always a challenge, and, when you're a freshman out there and you're a place kicker, he's really good in practice. I go up to Jacoby, like I said, I'm great off the driving range, and I go to Cowboy Joe event, and there's 100 people around. I'm not so good. And so, he's going to learn from that, and it was good for him to come up and convert. I think there's another question in the back.
Linebacker Logan Wilson made the transition from safety to linebacker this season. What has the transition sort of been like for him, and what have you seen from him so far?
Well, I think he was on a little bit of uncharted water, because when he was in high school, even in the secondary, a lot of times he played corner. And so getting close to the line of scrimmage and going through the progressions, all the keys and things like that, things move pretty fast up there. And whether you're sometimes you're on an island as a corner and you've just kind of got a single read. Boy, a linebacker, you've got multiple reads. And so each week he's gotten better. He's 6'2", and he's 220 pounds. He's a good tackler. He runs well. And we're well pleased with his progress.
He seems like a hybrid position almost, where you can put him out and cover a side corner as well. Is that fair to say, even though he's listed as a weak side
Right.
linebacker?
Well, actually, we slide, in our pro-style Tampa 2 stuff, those guys slide quite a bit. A lot of our guys are somewhat that way. I was talking with Kevin one time, and Kevin was saying, back in the days, all the linebackers, they all had neck rolls, and they walked around, and, they were all 240 pounds. Those days are gone. With the way offenses have gone with different spreads, you have to have the ability to play physical teams, but you can't be out there in space. And so between our linebackers, they're all guys that have that kind of ability.
Craig, every sport, every coach is worried about the roller coaster,
Yeah.
Emotions. You had a great high and now a low. Is there any concern about with such a young team of trying to now having to build them back up to kind of get in that middle ground again?
Well, that's more art than science, as you handle young people. And, certain guys need to be challenged. Other guys need to be shown what they can become. I'm convinced that these young men really care deeply about what they're doing. And they don't need to be told about all their failures. They want to do well. What we need to do is show them how they can play better. And so I think within our coaching staff, there are good men that are seasoned veterans that will bring this football team about to where Saturday you'll see a competitive game and a really confident football team by the Cowboys.
Coach, what have you seen out of your offensive line through 2 games?
Mhm.
Did some movement around in the offseason, got a freshman in there. What have you seen kind of compare and contrast to the first?
Well, I think they've worked well together, and the proof's in the pudding with the pass protection. And some of it you can credit Josh, too, because he's been able to elude some rush. But you don't see all the major busts where there's just guys that are running scot-free. And that's something from the naked eye. When you see unaccounted for things, you go, that's not right. And so they're working well together. I thought we probably established the line of scrimmage better against Northern Illinois. We were in hopes that we'd be able to get some movement from Nebraska on their defensive front, and quite frankly, we never did. And so that's a concern. We've got to get that back on track. But we're pleased, but yet we're not completely happy.
Craig, off of the question that David just asked you, the offensive line, taking that into consideration, weren't able to get a lot of push, a lot of leverage. But when I ask you about Brian Hill, and I look at the first 2 games, he's really had to struggle for each and every yard he's gotten. Is it me, or is I notice a little bit of a lack of that extra gear with him in the first 2 games? Would you agree with that?
Well, I can tell you, because memory is selective. I remember a lot of times of getting out on space. I think if you look at the statistics last year against University of North Dakota, he rushed for 34 yards. And so sometimes it's creating some running lanes. I was really pleased with the extra yards that he got after contact against Northern Illinois. Probably didn't feed him the ball enough and tried to create some one-on-one situations well enough. For us to be successful, we need to be more balanced. We were balanced in the first game. And so we're going to keep on feeding the ball to Brian in some more situations. But, his real forte is when he's able to get out on a safety or a corner and run him over. And he's just not been in that position so far. So we're working hard at trying to schematically look at doing some things that are going to free him up, because I think he's a very talented running back. And 1,600 yards last year was a little bit of a case of we got so one-dimensional, we weren't able to throw the football. We just fed him the football all the time. But his number of yards thus far, we need to get some bigger runs. I think our most explosive run right now is maybe 8 yards or something with him. And that's not the style of running back that he needs to be.
You mentioned back to the big plays on, allowed by the defense. Obviously, played some good skill guys. Northern Illinois had the receiver. Nebraska had a lot of them. I know every play's different, but you say that a lot of it was just good execution by the opponents, or some breakdowns by your guys, or kind of a even mix.
Well, there was somewhat of a mix. Against Northern Illinois, a couple of the jet sweeps. That was whenever you just see a guy running, and he's not being challenged. There's a breakdown there, and so I thought against Northern Illinois we had some real challenges there. When you see a receiver run scot-free, and it happened in the Nebraska game, we had a blown coverage. That's a bust. Now, when you do see the receiver and DJ's down there, he was concerned about the interference call. We got to give credit to our opponents too. There's some playmaking ability comes into play. So I don't want to say it's 50-50, Robert. I'd like to think that more of those things are correctable than they came down to just ability. But quite frankly, some of the plays did come down to ability too. Just like Tanner Gentry made a couple big plays too.
Are you pretty encouraged by the added success in your own pass game through 2
game.
But certainly changed the dynamics of our offense. I mean, we've not had a weapon since we've been here at the University of Wyoming. Coach Vegan and myself had talked to where, you can dial up a play on 1st and 10, and it's going to change the dynamics and makeup of your team, and which we really believe in the long run is going to enhance our running game. So encouraged about our ability to throw, ability to catch. But what we cannot do is get to the point where we're just relying on that. We're not made that way. And, I don't know what wise old football coach says, when you throw the ball, 3 things happen and 2 of them are bad. And we had a lot of bad happen in the Nebraska game, particularly in the 4th quarter. And some of that came down to we said, hey, we're gonna put all our, we're just going to put it all on Josh's shoulders to make every play. And he can make a whole lot of plays, but we got to be able to spread the ball out. But it's great to have that ability, because you're going to see a lot less people crawl up with 9 men in the box.
Okay, through 2 games, do you like what you've seen from Sean, the running back coming back
Mhm.
from everything? I know it doesn't give you carries this
Right.
time, but do you like just the way he's practiced, the way he's played? Do you like him
I
what you've seen?
really like how he practices, really like his intensity that he brings to the game, but both he and Brian, we would like to see more productivity. Now, certainly, we didn't feed him the football very much against the Huskers. And some of that came into how the game started to unfold. But both of those 2 guys, their productivity needs to go up. Okay, we have some questions online, I believe, so I'll take anyone that's here.
Hey, Coach, this is Keith Kelly over in Cheyenne. You talked about stopping the jet sweeps a lot better, but you had a few go for big yards your way with Austin Conway. How can his versatility kind of help your offense, with the way he's able to run, catch the ball out there?
Well, he's added a dimension that we've not had, and his playmaking ability, once he has a football, he's shown the ability to make plays against, the 2 teams that we've played, and it's my guess that, he'll be in position to make more big plays. And so we're constantly looking at integrating him into our offense more. What we have to be mindful of is, while he is a sophomore, he came out in the middle of spring football, so his spring football experience was very limited. We were not able to do all the schematic things with him during the course of the summer. So to a certain degree, he's learning on the run, but we're really pleased with what he is able to do. I thought, I don't know what his yard per carry is, but it's probably got to be off the chart, and he's an excellent punt returner. So as we continue to hone up our offense, you're going to see Austin be more intertwined in our play calling.